Hello, everybody. Adam Parks here with another episode of Receivables Roundtable. Today, I'm here with Shantanu from Prodigal, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the different technologies that are being used to create efficiencies in performance, compliance, etc. So, Shantanu, thank you so much for taking the time to participate today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be chatting with you again.
For those that don't know anything about Prodigal yet, can you tell us a little bit about your company and what you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. Prodigal is a natural language intelligence platform very specifically built for the collections and servicing of loans. And what we essentially do is help collection agencies, lenders, debt buyers, law firms engaged in collection really understand the intent that goes between every conversation that happens between their customer and someone on their team, one of their agents. Uh, that is the essence, that is the heart of everything we do. And once we understand the intent, we can use it for like different use cases within a collection agency.
Okay, so when we talk about use cases, I think that's a place we're going to have to dig in here a little bit. You know, one of the things that I think most people have their eye on these days is performance, right? With all the uncertainty in the world. Tell me a little bit about how this product, ultimately can benefit from a performance perspective.
Great question. One of the things, obviously, one of the things we are living through and have been for the last several months is the pandemic. And what that has done is it has made people work remotely. A lot of people are still working remotely. A lot of collection agencies still have their agents working remotely. And it's become so much harder to kind of manage your team in a remote setting. One of the places where we see that being particularly problematic for collection agencies is how many calls do they do in a day? How much time are they actually spending on the phone versus actually like between calls and so on and so forth. And while it's really easy to kind of keep tabs on what everyone is doing when they're all in a floor right in front of you, it has become incredibly harder once everyone is remote. One of the things we noticed more recently is agents spend anywhere between 1.5 to 2 hours per day per agent just annotating call notes. And that is an enormous sink of time. It amounts to, it's a quarter of the day really. And
Yeah.
if you analyze it, it's like close to like $10,000 to $12,000 that are being spent when agents are actually just taking notes. Now that is lost money and also prevents you from making more borrower outreach in a single day. So there's an opportunity cost to it as well. And that's a use case where understanding what happened between a customer and one of your agents is something a machine can do to kind of generate that note like really quickly and just make sure that agents aren't spending that kind of time annotating calls, wrapping up calls, and so on and so forth.
So if you're leveraging machine learning from a note-taking standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the system is listening to the call, it's extracting, let's say, the relevant information and dropping it into the notes.
Yeah.
Does that give you some additional reporting capacity? Like, are you creating more of a standardized data set when it comes to the notes?
Absolutely. I think great question. Very, very insightful. So, in addition to obviously like saving people time, it also creates an extremely standardized output of every single call. That standardized output can be used for like multiple use cases. Obviously, we'll cover all the basic stuff like all the compliance disclosures, were they given, yes, no. Uh, but that's not it. I mean, even at a very, very granular level, you can understand if someone mentions the word bankruptcy, you can actually have a fairly detailed update on how that conversation went in regards to a bankruptcy. And you can do that in a way that you can use multiple places. One is if you decide to kind of target and segment customers down the road, you have a very insightful, very, very nuanced understanding of what happened. If you want to standardize your if you want to standardize your agents and see how is agent A responding versus agent B, all of that data is kind of available at your fingertips. Currently, all of that data exists, but it's very, very hard to make use of because it's extremely unstructured. By turning all of those calls into very, very structured summaries, we enable standardization of agent performance, standardization of customer profiles, and obviously standardization of your risk strategies, dialer strategies, so on and so forth.
Wow. I mean, I know notes has been a major issue in the past, and something that always needs to be addressed in unique fashions when we're going through system conversions between one, say,
Oh
system
yeah,
of record to, to a different platform, or whatever.
yeah.
So I'm curious to see what kind of insights management's able to extract from that beyond just what you guys are doing from an automated perspective. But how much does that really end up telling the executives of that organization, like what is actually happening here, and what kind of reports can be generated? It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. I think one of the things which is also very peculiar to this industry, if I may, is the industry sees a high agent turnover. And every time an agent leaves, they take their shorthand dictionary with them. And as a result, like if you're looking at the same account like 3 months later, uh, 1 in 10 times you'll like really be scratching your head to understand what really happened on that conversation. So being able to generate standardized notes in long form, not in shorthand, in itself is a big win.
Yeah, you mean say it probably brings a little bit of clarity to it, and when you say that they take the shorthand dictionary home with them, that is a true statement, and not just in the collections industry, but I think anytime that we're taking notes. But really, an interesting approach there. But you said something else that kind of piqued my interest, and when you talked about segmentation, you talked about segmenting of the consumers. Tell me a little bit about that, and from that perspective, what are you segmenting the consumers for?
Absolutely. So once we understand the intent of the intent underlying the conversation between a customer and a borrower, segmenting customers is the second use case that we put it to.
Mhm.
A great example there is mul- often there might be two conversations which are both dispositioned as a promise to pay, but they are very, very different in nature. On, let's say, the first one, you call up someone and they're like reminded and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I missed this, I'm really apologetic. And they give you very, very specific instructions. They're like, I expect to get paid 10 days from now. Can you, I'm willing to commit to making a payment 14 days from now. This is a very, very high confidence promise to pay. On the other hand, uh, there could be something that is far more reactive. So it's like the borrower is really being pushed or kind of being fed leading questions by
Mhm.
the agent before the borrower actually commits to a promise to pay. In both cases, the system of record, the CRM, will show it as a promise to pay, but the level of confidence of these two things is wildly different. And our natural language processing platform is really able to tease the two out differently and say that there is a promise to pay which is higher confidence, which you don't need to chase down as much, which you may or may not want to send a reminder to, but which is very different, even though the disposition says promise to pay, very, very different from a low confidence promise to pay, where we recommend that you send a reminder like 3 days ahead, either a soft reminder or a phone call, where you follow right after, like if a payment is not on or you follow up right after. You might eventually also incentivize borrowers to, incentivize your agents to get higher confidence PTPs than the low confidence PTPs, and so on and so forth. So being able to understand this allows you to separate out customers who are giving you high confidence PTPs from low confidence PTPs. And this is just one example of really where understanding the customer or borrower's intent
Mhm.
can make a big difference in how you segment your customers and what treatment or what strategies do you follow up with.
Okay, well, as a marketing guy, whenever I hear about segmentation, I'm thinking about differentiation of messaging. Is that
Yep.
something that you guys are doing as well? Are you looking at kind of who I'm speaking to, and then modifying the message to that individual?
Yeah. So absolutely, I think so. We don't we recommend, we kind of give you all the underlying levers. We don't create the strategy for you, at
Okay.
least not off the shelf, but we'll work with you and really uh, tell you things like, this is how you interpret a particular score, or this is how you interpret a particular lever. And then agency owners and obviously like managers are like far more insightful as to like what's the best way to go about it.
Okay.
uh, so to that extent, yeah, if someone is just kind of blowing you off with a low confidence PTP, how you follow up with them is best left to them, but we really help you interpret that very, very accurately.
Interesting. From a targeting perspective, I've found a lot of success, from a mass communication standpoint by trying to hone the message in, whether it be, minor adjustments to language, or it could be totally different messaging based on a particular criteria.
Yeah.
Help me understand that, from a
Mm.
criteria perspective, some of the things that you guys might be looking at when creating market segments.
Yeah. So obviously there's the standard demographic stuff where we help you understand by inferring from what they're seeing, understand like uh, who's shown a very strong ability to kind of pay. If their answers are very precise as to like where they're going to get the source of funds from, that informs your financial profile. That's one lever. The second lever is the like a great example is a lot of people ask for email address on the phone. How quickly, how instantaneously can you recall that email address, and how confidently do you give it out? Are you comfortable receiving text messages or not? I think all of these things kind of
Mm.
go into evaluating, building a psychometric profile for you and saying, okay, this borrower, based on everything we know, seems to be someone who's going to be more receptive to digital channels of communication. um, or even if everyone, you send a message to everyone, these are people who you expect to have read it. In a sense, if you send me an email, I'm most likely going to read any email you send me. On the other hand, if you send it to my mother, she's probably only going to check her email like not as frequently, every second day or something. So those are the kind of expectations that we help you manage, and so that you can respond accordingly. So and then obviously, like, so ability to pay, your kind of your comfort with digital profiles, sorry, digital channels of communication, your intent, and how, like, every time someone makes a payment in full request of a customer, how does that customer react? Do they react instantaneously, and are they confrontational, or are they like far more, they realize that this is something they owed, they are a little more apologetic? I think you're able to like really target along those, segment customers along those metrics very, very accurately, and tailor your message.
Well, it sounds like you guys have some really interesting technology over there, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come in and share some information about it with me today.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, we don't do this as kind of a product pitch, but I was so intrigued in learning about some of the different aspects of what you guys were doing and how you were leveraging the technology to benefit the industry and those kinds of things that, took a little bit of a pivot today, but
Oh,
I felt like I learned a lot through our conversation, both on screen and kind of leading into our video today.
yeah. No, absolutely. I think, and our product is kind of, is one manifestation, but the reality is technology is kind of grown leaps and bounds. So leaving aside what we are doing, I think one of the things everyone needs to think about is all the intelligence, all the information really that you need exists in your communication channels with the customers. It is only a matter of time before you really have to ingest it, analyze it, and respond to it in a way that is very, very personalized to the customer. And all of this data exists, most people record it, but they seldom make any use of it. But
Mhm.
technology is allowing you to do it like very, very cheaply and cost effectively at scale.
I've always found that the customers are willing to tell me everything as long as I'm willing to listen.
Yeah.
And that's just been my experience, whether it be within the receivables management industry, profiling debt buyers back in the day when I was brokering portfolios,
Hmm.
or really any other business that I've been involved in. The customers want to talk about what they're doing and kind of what they see and how they feel. And if you're willing to listen, you can really learn an incredible amount. Now, if you stack machine learning on top of that process, I can only imagine what we're able to learn from those interactions. So,
Yeah.
I hope we can do a follow up conversation on this in the near future as you guys continue to evolve. I'd like to kind of continue to learn some more.
I
Um,
would- Yeah.
for those of you that are watching from home today, greatly appreciate your time. Feel free to leave any questions or comments below. Shantanu and I will be happy to respond to questions, either here on the LinkedIn channel or on the YouTube channel, wherever you're watching this video. If you have any additional guests that you'd like to see us interview or topics you'd like to see us cover and discuss, please feel free to comment below. Also, like and subscribe our content. We want to continue producing great content for the industry, so we appreciate everybody's interactions, comments, likes, etc. Shantanu, thank you again so much for taking the time to join me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Adam. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Awesome. Well, I hope to get to see you at the RMAI conference in April.
I'll be
And
there.
awesome. And I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. Bye, everybody.